Okay, we're starting with chapter 1 of the Tanya, which is written by the Baal HaTanya, the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Lubavitch, the founder of Lubavitch, Chabad, and his name was by Shneur Zalman from the city of Liadi. And we're going to start with chapter 1, Perek Aleph. Tanya Basof Perek Gimel Denidash Mashbi'im Oto Tiye Tzadik V'al Tiye Rasha. So it says in the chapter tractate of Nida, chapter 3 of Gemara, that before a person comes down to this world in heaven, they tell him to make a vow. To be a righteous individual and not to be a wicked individual. And even if the whole world tells you that you're a righteous individual, you have to consider yourself as a wicked individual. This calls for explanation. Because it's not good to estimate yourself, to consider yourself a wicked individual, as it says in the Mishnah in Avot. And even more so, you could come to, if you consider yourself a wicked person, you could come to sadness, to depression, God forbid, to a very heavy heart. And then you cannot come to serve Hashem with gladness and with joy. And if you don't come to sadness of heart from this understanding, that you consider yourself a wicked individual, it's also bad. You can come to irreverence, God forbid. Because you should be despised by wickedness. So it's not good that you're like kind of okay with that, right? However, okay, now we're going to explain the 5 levels of types of righteous people on the spectrum, right? So we have 1, tzadik v'tovlo, the righteous individual who prospers. 2, tzadik v'ralo, the righteous individual who suffers. Rasha v'tovlo, the evil individual who prospers. Rasha v'ralo, an evil individual who suffers. V'ubeinoni, the last one is an intermediary man. Alright, so what does this all mean? So the first one, a righteous individual who prospers is a complete tzaddik. Tzaddik v'ralo means that he has actually no sins at all. His evil inclination is completely transformed into good. Tzaddik v'ralo tzaddik she'eno gamor, and a righteous individual who suffers, he's an incomplete tzaddik, and he has, but we'll get to that, what that actually means. פרשת משפטים פירש צדיק ורע שהרע שבו כפוף לטוב וכו'. So in the Raya Mehemna it says in Parashat Mishpatim that the righteous person who suffers, who is an incomplete tzaddik, it doesn't mean that he has sins, but it means that he has some evil inside of him, but it's completely subservient and subdued by his good that he has. So it doesn't come out into action, and it doesn't come out into speech, and it doesn't come out into thought. So it says in Gemara Brachot that a righteous individual, their good inclination judges them, and a wicked individual, the evil inclination judges them. And a Beinoni, intermediate man, he has both of them judge them. He has also the good inclination judge him, and he's also his evil inclination judge him. You know, it's like the 2 angels kind of. But it's not like that at all. It's not like those images. But that's an analogy. Amar Rabba כגון אנא בינוני אמר לאביי לא שביק מר חיה לכל בריאה וכו'. Rabba declared, who was a big sage from the time of the Gemara, who was a Tana, that he himself considered himself a Beinoni. And Abaya answered to that, responded to that, but like, if you consider yourself a Beinoni, what does make that us? Then we won't be able to even live, it says here. None of the creatures can live, because if you're already a Beinoni, which was one of the biggest sages, if not the biggest sage at that time, then all of us are just wicked, and it's like, it's not possible. There needs to be a righteous individual. To understand all the aforesaid clearly, explanation is called for. וגם להבין מה שאמר איוב בבבא פרק א'. You need to also understand what it means, what Job said in the Gemara of Baba Basra, chapter Aleph, chapter 1. Ribono shel olam, barat tzadikim, barat rashim v'chule. It says there that Job said, God, Master of the universe, you created righteous individuals and you created wicked individuals. And this needs explanation because we know that persons are, for he does not decree righteous and wicked, meaning in Shamayim, before we come down to this world, everything is like already set out for us. Everything is already decided. What house we're going to live in, where we're going to live, who's going to be our parents, are we going to be foolish or smart, or are we going to be strong, weak, rich, poor? All those things are already laid out. But the one thing that's not laid out for us and is not decided for us is whether we are wicked or righteous. That is the free choice we have. So we need to understand, what does it mean when Job said, like, you created wicked man and you created righteous man? That choice is up to us. And we also need to understand the level of the Beinoni, of the intermediary man. Which for sure cannot be someone that has 50-50, right? Someone that has 50% merits and 50% misdeeds or sins, whatever you want to call it. Because if then, how can Rabba has erred that he himself is a Beinoni? Because he was a righteous individual. He didn't sin 50% of the time, God forbid. It was even so that his mouth would never cease from speaking Torah and such high levels of Torah that the angel of death couldn't even get a hold of him. How they could have erred that half his deeds were sins, God forbid. And it's even considered the moment that you do a sin, you're considered a completely wicked person in that exact moment, until you do tshuva, until you return to God. Till then, you're considered a wicked individual. But if then you did tshuva and you return to God, then you're considered a righteous individual. And a complete righteous individual. Even he who violates a minor prohibition of the rabbis, that he's also considered a wicked person. And it says in Perek Vav Shavuot that a person who has the opportunity to stop someone from sinning and he doesn't do so, and he fails to stop that person, he's also considered wicked at that moment. And all the more so, if you have an opportunity to do a mitzvah, if a person has the opportunity to do a mitzvah, to do a good deed, and you don't do it, you're also considered wicked. You had an opportunity and you didn't do it. For instance, someone who has the opportunity to learn Torah in that moment and he doesn't do so. To whom the sages have applied and said this verse, because he has despised the word of the Lord, the Torah, because he had the opportunity to learn Torah, and it says then that you shall be utterly cut off, disconnected from Hashem. And it is very interesting. Because this is not said about all the other things. It's definitely in this instance where you forego the opportunity to learn Torah that you're cut off, karet. Not in other instances. This being so, we must conclude that the Beinoni, he never ceases from learning Torah. He doesn't do this sin of not learning Torah. He never neglects it. And maybe this is why maybe this is why Rabbah mistaked himself or consider himself a Beinoni, because he himself also didn't cease from the Torah. So it's like, oh, a Beinoni doesn't cease from the Torah, so I must be a Beinoni. What it says in the Zohar, it says here, someone who is an incomplete tzaddik has few sins, which is very hard to understand, because we said earlier, someone who is an incomplete tzaddik has no sins. But now the Zohar comes to say he does have sins. This is the query of Rav Hamnuna to Eliyahu. Query. אבל לפי תשובת אליהו שם פירוש צדיק ורע לו הוא כמו שכתוב בראי מהמנה פרשת משפטים דליל. But according to Eliah's answer, the meaning of a righteous man who suffers is one whose evil nature is subservient to his good. Okay, so we have here an argument, it seems. ושבעים פנים לתורה. And the Torah has 70 facets. So basically, Rav Hamnuna's query is, it's a bit difficult to understand. And it says it is difficult to understand how Rav Hamnuna would even entertain the notion that a righteous man who suffers actually has sins. Inasmuch as the above mentioned question clearly leads us to assume the opposite, right? Rav Hamnuna's query, however, was prompted only by the fact that the Torah has 70 facets, and he thought that this was possibly one of these facets. All right, let's continue. As well known that one whose deeds and misdeeds are equally balanced is called a Benoni. It's 50-50. You're a Benoni, you're intermediary. And one who has a majority of virtues, you're considered a righteous individual. Hu Shem Mushal. This is only a borrowed term for these instances. Whenever it's said that a righteous individual is someone that has more merits, that's only a borrowed term. And when it's said for someone that he has 50-50 merits and misdeeds, that is also a borrowed term, that he's a Benoni, an intermediary. This is used in regard of reward and punishment. When one goes up to Chaim after a long life, hopefully, then he's judged. And these terms are used for reward and punishment. Because one is judged according to the majority of his deeds. And then when somebody has more merits, comes up to Shamayim and he has more merits, B'ezrat Hashem, then he's considered a tzaddik and he won the case, so to speak. However, when we seek the true definition of what it means to be a tzaddik and a benoni, it says, the sages say that for a completely righteous individual, it is said that in Tehillim by David HaMelech, that my heart is void within me, meaning that he has no evil inclination because he has destroyed it and killed it by fasting and doing other things as well. But whoever didn't come to this level, that he has completely destroyed his evil inclination, even though he has many more merits than his sins, he's not considered a tzaddik whatsoever, not even an incomplete tzaddik. And our sages have expounded and explained that the Almighty One, Hashem, saw that the actual righteous individuals are very limited in amount. So what did he do? He spread them out throughout all the generations, because we need a tzaddik, we need righteous individuals in every generations, because the tzaddik is the foundation of the world. The world leans on the shoulders of the tzaddik. We rely on the tzaddik. The paucity of the tzaddik, the righteous were few, can be explained only if a tzaddik is he who totally rid himself of his evil nature. A tzaddik is only someone who rids himself of his evil nature, where the term tzaddik to mean one whose good deeds outweigh the evil. Why then do our sages say that the righteous were few, when the overwhelming majority of Jews have more good deeds than evil? However, the explanation of the matter, so that we better understand the levels of the tzaddik and benoni, and the various variations within their ranks, al pi ma shektuv harav Chaim Vital, zichrono levracha b'shar kadosha uval Chaim shar nun perek bet. So now Chaim Vital comes to say something, what he wrote in Shara Kadusha, that every Jew, no matter if he is wicked or no matter if he's righteous, every Jew has two souls. For it's written, I made neshamot, which is plural, which are two spirits, two life forces, two souls. And one soul comes from the klipa, from the husk, the shell of the Sitra Achar, which means the other side. To give it a little explanation, it conceals the light of God, this shell, and therefore everything that comes out, because everything in this world that comes through the light, like it's revealed to be good. But there are things that are, a lot of things in this world are also concealed by this husk, by this other side. And the light is concealed in it, and so whatever comes out of it in this world, it comes out as seemingly bad and negative. V'hi mitlabeshet b'dam hadam lachayut haguf. God creates forces which conceal the God, the life force, in all creation. And by the way, like if it conceals godliness, it is evil. And this soul dresses itself in our blood, in our veins, in our whole body. As it's written, for the nefesh of the flesh. This is in the blood, this soul. And from this soul, all the bad and negative character traits come from. And they all come from four main elements. Anger and arrogance. This comes from the element of fire, because it goes upwards, right? And the character trait of like pleasures and desires for negative things, comes from the element of water, because water like gives growth to all kinds of pleasurable things like fruits and like. And frivolity, scoffing, boasting, idle talk, all nonsense basically. This comes from Yesod HaRuach, from the element of wind, because because it has betelim Yesod HaRuach, because it has no substance really. V'atzvut Yesod HaAfar, and the sadness and laziness, because it's so heavy, it comes from the earth element of earth. But this soul actually has also good character traits, and it has some good character traits which are chasadim, like gemilut chasadim, which is like acts of kindness, and chamanut, mercy. And but since this is nefesh of klipa and evil, how do good character traits come from it? The matter is now addressed. So how is this possible, right? Because we thought it was going from the klipa. Ki b'Yisrael nefesh zo de klipa hi miklipat noga, because the soul of Israel, the soul of the Jew, of this particular soul, because we were talking about two souls, this one soul comes from klipa. Hi miklipat noga, it comes from the klipa of noga. Sheish ba gam ken tov, this klipat noga has some good in it. Hi misot etz hadat tovera, because this specific klipa comes from the klipa of etz hadat tovera. It has good and evil in it, the tree of life. Sorry, not the tree of life, the tree of knowledge, which has both good and bad in it. And the souls of the nations, their soul come from the impure klipot, and there's nothing good whatsoever in it. And it is written that all the good deeds of the nations are for selfish motives. But we're going to explain, it's not all exactly like this, 100%, we'll get to it, why not all the nations are like this. Not all the individuals are like this. וכתיב דגמרא על פסוק וחסד לאומים חטאת שכל צדקה וחסד שאומות העולם עושים אינן אלא יהר וכו'. And it comes to say here that all the charity of the nations do is really for their own glorification, to make themselves look good. There's no genuine good deeds there. But it says, it should be noted that among the nations, and this is what I was about to say, there are also to be found those whose souls are derived from Klipat Noga, that also have soul that come from the side where there's also good in it. And these are called the righteous of the nations. These righteous individuals, they have selfless motives, and they have genuine concern for their fellow. Alright, that was the end of chapter 1, Perek Aleph. Next time, Perek Bet.